What's going on, HPC? So glad you decided to join us today for this daily devotional as we continue to walk through the 1 year Bible. Man, I am a 1 year Bible fan, or a 1 year and a half Bible fan, 1.5 years Bible fan, if you have a 2.5-year-old and a newborn at home. But I really just love how, man, just 10 to 15 minutes investment in God's word for an entire year can literally change the rest of your life, and I believe that. So continue to track along with us this year. I'm about to unpack a whole lot of Bible in a little bit of time, Bible history / soap opera. So if we're looking at it, man, we're talking about Jesus' people, Old Testament. We're looking at 2 Samuel today, and we have King Saul. He is God's anointed at the time, the first king of God's people. David served underneath him. You know, David and Goliath, not Pastor David. Never want you guys to get confused, but they are both great guys. And King Saul has a son named Jonathan, who rightfully should have been the next king. But Saul, man, he just is unfaithful to God. God dismisses him. Jonathan no longer becomes king, but David, the one who only served underneath, is anointed to be the next king and placed in the place on the throne. So here we see God chooses David. He becomes the next king. Saul and his son Jonathan both die in battle. And on the very day that the news is told that they die in battle, Jonathan's son Mephibosheth, who is a child, some believe he was about 5 years old at that time, he is dropped out of sheer panic and remains crippled for the rest of his life. So now we're going to jump into the word. Just had to get that out. You might want to watch it 1 or 2 more times, kind of understand where we're at. But 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 5 through 7, it says, his name is Mephibosheth. He was Jonathan's son and Saul's grandson. When he came to David, who's now the king, he bowed low to the ground in deep respect. David said, greetings, Mephibosheth. Mephibosheth replied, say that 5 times fast. I am your servant. Don't be afraid, David said. I intend to show you kindness because of the promise I made to your father, Jonathan. I will give you all the property that once belonged to your grandfather, Saul, who was once king, and you will eat here with me at the king's table. Man, when you look at this verse, I see 2 things that really jump out. The first one is Mephibosheth's condition, and the second is David's kindness. Man, Mephibosheth, he had fallen. He had been dropped. Man, he's left crippled. He's separated from the throne, from the royal lineage. And not only is he separated, but he's in fear for the rest of his life that David could come and just kill him, so he would no longer be a threat to that throne. So he's not just separated from the throne, but he is an enemy of the throne, crippled, stuck in this state, paralyzed. Yet we see David's kindness. David is the king of all of Israel, of all of God's people. Yet out of nowhere, we see David take the initiative to seek out Mephibosheth in spite of his ugliness, in spite of his unloveliness, in spite of his brokenness, and bring him into the king's house and presence and adopt him as his own son. But not only that, he also shares all of his bounty and fellowship with this undeserving man for the rest of his life. And that, my friends, is the most beautiful soap opera Hallmark movie you will ever see. But it is also a perfect picture of the gospel. It is a perfect picture of what God has done to us at the sake of Christ. Because we were broken, we were lost, we were crippled, we were paralyzed, we were enemies of God by our own choice, by our own birth. Yet at the cost of Christ, God brings us into his presence, into fellowship with him, into dine at his table. His word says, at the presence of our enemies, to live with him for the rest of his life, rest of our life, for all of eternity in peace and in a fruitful bounty. And that is the promise we have. That is good news. I hope that brings joy to your heart. I hope it reminds you of the goodness of God and the grace on your life. I hope you have an amazing day. Make sure you share this. Make sure you like it. Share it with your friends, and I will see you tomorrow.